Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Christy Lowe, I'm your host, and I am really glad you're back with us again this week. We're in this series talking about control, and God is just showing up big time, y'all. Last week was the first in this series. If you didn't listen to last week, go back and give that a listen if you haven't already. But we started the series just talking about what control is, and just kind of a general definition. And the Lord just really laid it on my heart a couple of weeks ago to explore this area of the need to feel control in our lives. And so as I began to sit with him and realize what a control freak I was, which I thought I was a recovering control freak, as it turns out I'm just a in denial control freak. And so he began to show me that, and we began to deal with it. And then he just kind of opened up a conversation between the two of us and began to pour out and show me some really incredible ways that we try to exert control, ways we think we have control. That's one of them that has been revelatory to me. So when we were talking last week, we kind of defined what control is. And whenever I define control, I think of control as anytime I try to put my thumb on the scale, anytime I try to exert power or influence to determine the outcome or to push something or someone in the direction that I think it needs to go, that goes beyond just the normal day-to-day balance things of just getting stuff done. It's more like I want to make sure things go my way, or I want to make sure I feel security in an area. What I find funny is that many times we think we're not control freaks. Okay. And so there's going to probably be a segment of you who are listening to this and your thought is, well, I'm not a control freak. This is not something I deal with. Okay. Well, here's the thing. I kind of went down that road of thinking that really I wasn't that much of a control freak. And what I've realized is that while I think that there are probably degrees of how much people want to control things or how much people exert any kind of manipulation over circumstances in their lives or conversations or what have you, there's always a moment when you realize whether or not there's any kind of control issues within you. And that moment is the moment that you begin to feel out of control. I told y'all at the beginning of this series that God had made it very abundantly clear that I was just supposed to trust him. And we were going to talk about this until we were done talking about it. And last week, I had encouraged you guys, your homework assignment last week was to write it down in your journal or use a note in your phone to keep up with the number of times that you realized that you felt like you needed to control something or when you were controlling something for good or bad. Okay. And so I had started doing that, and true story, I was doing okay. I was like, I went, shopping with my daughter on like last Tuesday. And I mean, hey, if anybody has been shopping with their daughter, I don't really have to go much further because you understand that there are things you want them to buy and there's things that they don't want to buy, or your tastes are not the same. And so you're like, okay, I can't exert all control over this. I need to rein it in and let her make the 20-year-old adult decisions that she's trying to learn how to make on buying the clothes she needs and the things she needed. And so there were several things along the way that I wrote down, and I'd made this huge list, and I've got like a hair in my face. Okay. I was relatively proud of myself. Just not like, oh, I'm so good at this and oh, I'm not a control freak, but more often than not, I was like, I would recognize it. And when I would recognize it, I was trying to go, okay, I don't have to control that, right? Okay, so I think I'm doing great. That is until on Saturday morning. And on Saturday morning, as luck would have it, my dad had come to Lubbock. He umpires softball games, and he had a playoff game here in the Lubbock area. And he had come into town to umpire those softball games. And so he was staying with us. And I had noticed that he did not feel well. And I noticed that he wasn't quite himself. But he had umpired the game on Thursday night, and he came home and he was really tired. And Friday, he and I ran a few errands, and I noticed he just didn't feel great. Okay. And he went to bed pretty early. He didn't sleep at all on Friday night. Like, he told me on Saturday morning, he was like, I did not sleep at all. And on Saturday morning, he leaves to go to the second, it was one of those, like a series, a softball series. Whenever they're in the playoffs, they play the best 2 out of 3 games. And I said, Dad, are you okay? Are you sure okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay. I think I'll feel better if I just get going. I said, okay. So he left. About 45 minutes later, he called me and he said, Christy, I'm coming back to the house. I don't feel okay. And when he got back to the house, I said, okay, we're going to the urgent care because you're not okay. Something's not right. And turned out my dad was having a heart attack. And so we realized very quickly that not only was he having a heart attack, he's also in congestive heart failure, and his heart function is extremely low at the time of this recording. So we're getting whisked off into ICU and having angiograms and getting bypass surgery scheduled, and things are moving very quickly, and you begin to realize very quickly that my dad is definitely not okay. And that is the moment when you realize that you have no control over a situation. Absolutely no control over a situation. I mean, I couldn't stop what was happening. I could not do anything about what the outcome of this heart attack was. All I could do was watch from the little corner of that ICU hospital room as doctors and nurses and these incredible cath lab people, I mean, just people coming in and out to take care of my dad and to try to help his heart get the support he needed until he was well enough to go into bypass surgery. And at the time of this recording, because obviously he has not had bypass surgery, he's still actually in ICU right this minute. So when I get done recording this, I'm going back to the hospital, y'all. That he knows I'm recording this and was very gracious to say, you go do that and I'll stay here. I think his quote was, I'm not going anywhere. I don't have any plans. So he's in the hospital currently. I have absolutely no control, none whatsoever, of how this works out, whether or not he survives the bypass surgery. I have no control over what his heart function is going to be. I have no control over whether he lives or dies. Hey, if I'm just being very real with you, I have no control over that. And in light of God prompting us to start this conversation, which is no coincidence, y'all, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God ordains each of these steps and these things that just happen to come together. Now that was the Lord bringing it all together. And at first I was resistant. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should talk about this on my podcast. Is this too heavy? Is this too hard? Is this, you guys, a lot of times whenever we meet, I'm going to come to you and offer you something that encourages you. I want to offer you something that takes you from where you are and increases your faith. And when it came to this series about exposing what control is and how we exert control, the Lord was very gracious to show me very quickly in this conversation that there are going to be times where you have no control. I never really had control over my dad's heart. I never really had control over how many days that man lives. We really don't have that much control, y'all. The Lord, I mean, in the Bible, it says that He numbers our days and He knows the days. He knows our days. So when we think we have control and we get to this place where we feel like we are out of control, often it's not just that we are feeling out of control. It's the realization that we didn't have control in the first place. And that's probably one of the most surreal feelings in the world. And what I have come to realize very quickly is that there's a couple of ways you can respond when you're feeling out of control. And I am speaking to you as someone who is dealing with it in real time. Like, I don't want to ever come here and like bleed on you, or that's not cool. Like, to get on a podcast and just like bleed on you. I don't want to do that. But I do think it's important for you to know that the Lord is showing me things in real time here and actively growing me up in this. One of the realest things I can tell you is that fear and anxiety are the things that I think a lot of us most often struggle with when there is uncertainty in our worlds. The uncertainty of whether or not my dad is okay, or the uncertainty of what's going on in your life, whether that be a relationship that you're dealing with that's not going well. And you're like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Or maybe you have a kiddo that is making terrible, horrible, no good, very bad decisions, and you are praying that they wake up before it's too late. I mean, let's just be real here, y'all. There are some very real things that we have absolutely no control over. The thing about fear and anxiety is that we have to get to this place where we decide what we're going to do with the fear and anxiety, right? And I'm being real here with you. Of course I'm scared. Well, I mean, I love my dad deeply. He is an incredible human. Silly. He's funny. He is the epitome of dad jokes, y'all. That man, oh my goodness, y'all. He is the corniest of corn dogs when it comes to silly jokes and memes. And he sends my kids funny messages. He has an alarm set on his phone where he sends them a funny joke every day at a certain time of day. Like, it's an alarm, so they know they're going to be getting a message. He does that for all of his grandkids. They're in a group text. The adults in this family do not get it. He's the one. He sends it out every day. Y'all, he's just the coolest dude. Okay. And I've known him all my life. And that goes without saying, but I've loved him all my life too. So when you come to that moment and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, fear and anxiety can certainly rule the day. Fear and anxiety can take grips on us and cause us to it can squeeze the life out of you, if I can just be real. And as I was sitting in his hospital room this weekend, one of the things I asked the Lord was, what is the opposite of fear and anxiety? What's the opposite of that? Because if we can just be real, you and me, let's just be real here, okay? This, like, putting my hands together and being like, well, I'm just going to trust the Lord with all my heart and lean not on my own understanding, and in all my ways acknowledge him, and he will make my path straight. Now, that is from Proverbs, and that is an incredible Bible verse, and I am not making fun of it. But let me just tell you, when you're staring your parents' health in the face and the outcome of a very real thing that you have absolutely no control of, sometimes saying those words feels a little empty because you aren't sure that you trust that he's got this. Let's just be real. Okay. I can't tell you that I've been sitting in that hospital room and just no stress at all. I am just trusting the Lord with all my heart. No, y'all, I'm just going to be real with you. I've been looking at my daddy and thinking, I hope we get out of here. There have been some real moments where I thought, I hope we see the other side of this. I don't know if we will. What if we don't? What ifs? Those what ifs, man, woo, they can eat you alive. So when I said to the Lord, what is the opposite of fear and anxiety? The first word he said back to me, I thought I misheard him, because he said, is bravery. And I thought, what? Bravery? Okay. Like, I'm so brave. No, I don't feel brave right now. I don't feel brave at all. And he said, think about it for a second. There are going to be times when we have no control and we're feeling out of control. And we are asked to, what did I just say a second ago? Trust the Lord with all of our heart and lean not on our own understanding. And in all our ways acknowledge him, and he will make our path straight. And there are going to be times where I'm not sure how to trust him in a situation, because I'll just be real. I know how I want this situation to work out. And you have some very real things in your life that you're like, no, this is how I want this to go. We've all been there. Okay. Being brave does not mean that you don't have fear or doubts. Being brave does not mean that you aren't completely sure that it's all going to work out your way. Let's just be real there, right? Being brave is saying, I'm going to trust you even if this doesn't go the way I expected. I'm going to trust you even if this isn't how I would write this script. I'm going to trust you even though I am scared out of my mind. And as we get to these places in our lives where we realize we really don't have control, instead of letting fear and anxiety take hold of and grip our heart, we get the opportunity instead to choose to be brave. The cool thing about bravery is that it does, even though we may have doubt or fear, or we aren't sure that we can trust God, we move in accordance with that faith anyways. It's about choosing the faith, even if we don't quite believe it yet. It's like, okay, I'm going to trust you, but I'm scared. It's trusting him even if we're scared. It's trusting him even if we have no control over what's going to happen. And when we come to that place of saying, okay, I'm going to choose bravery. I'm going to choose to be brave. Maybe you can't say that you completely trust the Lord. And I'm just going to say that I'm going to give some people some grace here. I think people who have doubts get a bad rap, like doubting Thomas in the Bible. By the way, there is not one place in the Bible where that Jesus ever calls him doubting Thomas. God never shames him for his doubt. And I want you to know that when you doubt what God is doing, he doesn't shame you. You're not being shamed for that. In fact, he's way big enough to handle any questions or doubts that you have. And there is no other time when you are going to have more questions and doubts than when you are feeling like you have absolutely no control over something, when something is entirely out of your hands. But what if we just decided to be brave? What if we decided to acknowledge that we have some fear and doubt, that we've got some anxiety? What if we just acknowledge that and say, yeah, that's what this is. And Lord, this is out of my control. But I'm going to just be brave and trust that you have this. Even if I am struggling, even if I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be. I will tell you, for the next couple of weeks, as I'm taking care of my dad and we're trying to navigate these waters, I'm trying to be brave. This morning, I was at the hospital this morning. We met with the doctors to talk about the plan for tomorrow's surgery. And after the doctor left, my dad and I were talking, and he said, "You're acting really brave." And he had no idea that I was about to come and talk about this, okay, about being brave. And I said, "Dad, what if I told you that I am being brave, but I'm still scared too?" He said, "You are?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just trusting God, even though I don't know what's about to happen." And even though this is so scary, and even though we have no control, Dad, I'm just trusting God, even though it's hard right now. And even though if I could fix this with a wave of a wand, I would do it in a heartbeat. Of course I would fix it. And I think that's where so many of us get tripped up, is because we would do anything to help those of us who are struggling, our loved ones. We would do anything to bring that other loved one to salvation that is resisting faith and anything to do with Christianity or anything to do with loving Jesus. And there are things that we would, because they're out of our control. I know good and well there are so many of you that would do anything for some of your people that you love so deeply. When we are faced with these moments, we have the choice. We can either spiral out of control in anxiety and in fear, or we can choose to be brave. It doesn't mean that we don't feel things. It doesn't mean that we don't have questions or doubts. It's about where we're turning and who we're taking them to. Are we trying to solve it ourselves? Or are we turning to the one who actually is the healer, who actually is in control and does hold all of it in his hands? If that's you today, you are in good hands. You are in good company. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that he wants to meet you in that place and carry you through that time, for lack of a better word. And sweet friends, I'm just so grateful that you let me come on here today, be a little bit raw and vulnerable with you about what's going on in my family's life right now. As we move into these next few weeks, I am interested to see what else the Lord shows us about control, because I was not planning on talking about feeling out of control today. That was not today's planned topic, but I love that he loves us so much and so intimately that he met me exactly where I was. And like I told him this morning in my prayer time, I said, Lord, you knew when I started this series that this was going to happen. You knew that this was the order that this was going to go in. You knew I was going to rip the Band-Aid off, start talking about control, and then bam, my dad was going to have a heart attack. You already knew this. This is no coincidence to him. He knew. Do you realize nothing surprises the Lord, right? You'll realize that, right? Nothing takes the Lord by surprise. So if it doesn't take the Lord by surprise, it makes it easier for me to trust him when I'm feeling out of control. And I don't know if that helps you or not, but it sure does help me today. So I'm going to pray for us, and then I'm going to get us out of here. Father, thank you that when we feel out of control, that you were always in control. Thank you that when we feel that sense of being out of control, that we can choose bravery over fear and anxiety. We can choose to trust you even if we have our doubts, or even if we have uncertainty. Even if saying, I trust you, Lord, is too hard, Lord, we can say, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to keep trusting him, even if I'm not sure that I know that he's got my best. Lord, I love that we can come to you with our doubts and our fears and our insecurities and our anxieties, Lord, that you are so much big. You're so big and can handle all of it. And so, Lord, I'm so thankful that you meet us where we are, that you are already there, that when we get there, Lord, you are already there. And that in the moments that are the hardest, we can still say, I know that you hold all of this in your hands. Lord, bring us back together next week. I pray that you would use these words to equip and enrich the lives of anyone who hears them, Father. I pray that those who are struggling and feeling out of control would be able to find one modicum of bravery today to say, okay, Lord, even if I'm still going to trust you. That's the bravest thing we can do, Lord. Thank you that you meet us and that you give us the strength to keep going in days like this. It is in your Son's name I pray, Jesus. Amen. Thanks for being here, guys. Ooh, I got a little emotional there. Thanks for being here today. And good Lord willing, I don't know if I've ever really meant that as much as I do this week, but good Lord willing, I'll see you next week.